This is it. My roommate is from Brisbane, Australia, and she didn't know where Micronesia was. But now she knows. Because you can see, there's Papua New Guinea. Australia is down here somewhere. And this from here all the way to here is the Federated States of Micronesia. Down to here. So the size of our ocean is equivalent to the size of the continental United States. So it's pretty big. We have a lot of tuna. Good sashimi too. But we have small islands, and my island is right there. It's a dot on the map. But in my country, it's one of the bigger islands. The country comprises of 607 islands and atolls, like I said, high islands and low islands. 65 inhabited, and they're politically divided into 4 states. It's a federation. We have a federal government similar to that of Australia and the United States. Population as of 2000 was 117. We're just completing another census this year, and the estimated figure now is about 120,000. We have a lot of people who have migrated to the United States because we have a special relationship with the US where our people can go work freely, we enter freely, and our young boys and girls are allowed to join the US Armed Forces in return for a couple $1 billion a year. Sorry, million, not billion. So these are some of our low-lying islands. As you can see, it's about, some of them are 4 meters, highest point, some about 6. It's not very high. I don't have the knowledge like my friend Roy to press this button and you see when the water rises and the water recedes. But you can just imagine from what Roy presented, 4 meters high to 6 meters highest points on around this. That's nothing. We will sink before Roy sinks. So don't worry, Roy. And this is one of the high islands. This is where I come from. It's one of my islands. And you can see on this side over here is mountainous. So people from the outer islands are moving onto this island and crowding it as well, putting pressure on social resources, health resources, educational resources. And so that's why we ask the people responsible for climate change to extend assistance so we can deal with the relocation of people from the low islands to these high islands. This is our staple diet. Fish, see the sashimi, the tuna, breadfruit, bananas, taros, coconuts. And over the last 30 years, we've imported a lot of rice. Right now, it's hard to maintain the sustainability of these because when you farm them in the outer islands, on the low-lying islands, and the ocean comes and covers it up, you can't harvest it afterwards. We all know what the impacts of climate change are. It's been talked about for the last 20 years. Saltwater intrusion into freshwater lenses. We have a lot of problems with the availability of potable water, drinking water in these outer islands. And so they rely on rainwater. And earlier this year, from January to March, we didn't have rain. So these people in the outer islands face the hardship of obtaining drinking water. We have some community arrangements that are in place that the government is running right now with the assistance of some regional organizations. I'll just quickly go through it. They're helping our communities in these outer islands to maintain. Can we turn the lights down a little bit, please? This is what I was showing just a little bit earlier. And because the salt water covers it when it's high tide, or when we have peak tides, we lose the produce. So what we're trying to do here is to help with these built beds around here and do composting, so we can maintain them even after the tide recedes. Because as you know, salt water doesn't evaporate because it absorbs rainwater. This one here is on one of the outer islands. This is what they depend on for freshwater drinking, for drinking water. But because of saltwater intrusion over the years, it's become brackish and they can't drink it anymore. So they use it only for washing. This here used to be freshwater, but it has turned also brackish. People can't use it anymore because, as you see, this is low-lying island. So the ocean crosses over it as well. These were breadfruit trees one time, but they've lost their leaves and they've lost their fruits also because of saltwater intrusion, as well as over here. So you can see from these few photos that I have here that the heavy impact of severe weather patterns on our low-lying islands. And this is what we experience almost every year. This is becoming common, and I also experience the same thing in the Philippines, as Roy said. It just destroys livelihoods, and you can't stop it. You, meaning us living out there, we can't stop it. There has to be a collective global effort to do this. So this is one of the high islands as well, and it doesn't help the existing hardships when we also want to develop our islands. And we have land-based activities. You look at that, that's earth moving, and they're clearing upland. Also over here, we want to also build roads so people can have access to get to the hospitals and the schools, just like everyone else in the world. So while we're dealing with the impacts of climate change, while we're dealing with, no, put that aside, I take that back. While we're dealing with the global move to develop, according to the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, and what's the other one? The IMF, their principles of development, we also still have to deal with the hardships that we face because of climate change. So, if you look, it's just, the challenges just get more challenging. We have financing difficulties, then the islands are scattered, as I was showing, and poor coordination of aid, foreign aid from donor countries. We lack the technical expertise. We get $5, for example, from ADB, then they send in 4 consultants to do the project for us. We end up with $1 out of that $5. And transfer of technology. We don't have real technical experts who can hold on to that technology and run it after the project ends. And also, information accessibility is a problem for us as well. It's a challenge. So I think we know what the problem is. It's replicated throughout the Pacific, and even in bigger countries like the Philippines and Mongolia. And when this problem first started, when we started seeing the problem, people said, let them, it's okay because we can relocate them. People from the smaller outer islands, we can relocate them. And I was involved in a climate change speaking tour in Australia last year. We went to 4 cities, and in one of the cities, after I did my presentation, this young man came up and said, it's okay, we can take your people, we have a lot of land in Australia. The issue is not about taking our people, the issue is about keeping our identity. Because once you move from that place, it's gone forever. Thank you very much.